This is Butler County 911. May I help you?
Yeah, there's been a huge wreck out here from our house.
Anybody pinned or trapped?
Yes, there's someone trapped.
Is she able to respond to you?
She's unresponsive.
Arms broken in multiple places.
Her pulse is very faint.
Pupils are fixed and dilated. I think she's gone.
This 911 call was about a car accident, but it was the beginning of a dark and twisted story that would shock everyone to their core.
It appeared to be a group of people that were happy, but it couldn't have been further from the truth.
Angel's Landing, the place the detective called normal, was hiding a twisted truth beneath its calm exterior.
This was a sinister plot and left a wake of victims in this path.
You never think it's going to happen to you. It did.
I was like, what do you mean? Where's my mom?
This is the story of a place that promised safety, but delivered only chaos, where every truth was a lie.
People called it an accident. But with everything that my family went through at Angel's Landing, I think it was a murder.
Learning the truth in this case was definitely more difficult than most cases. In fact, this was the most difficult case I think I've ever worked on in my career.
Angel's Landing, a peaceful-looking community in Kansas, hid dark secrets that would slowly come to light. With its beautiful homes, green lawns, and friendly neighbors, it seemed like the perfect place to live. But behind this ideal image lay a series of mysterious and tragic deaths that raised unsettling questions. The first tragedy occurred in February 2001, shaking the entire community. A small plane crashed, killing 38-year-old Mona Griffith, her 12-year-old daughter Lindsay, and Mona's boyfriend Jim Chase. The loss was heartbreaking, leaving friends and family struggling to cope. At first, the crash was seen as a terrible accident, just an unfortunate event. But as time passed and more strange incidents followed, detectives began to wonder if there was more to the story. What once seemed like an isolated tragedy began to feel like the start of something much darker. 2 years later, on June 26, 2003, another tragedy struck Angel's Landing. Patricia Trish Hughes, a 26-year-old resident, was found dead in a swimming pool. According to Emily, an 11-year-old neighbor and the only witness, Trish had rushed to save her young daughter who had fallen into the pool. Emily said Trish slipped, hit her head, and fell into the water. While Emily managed to rescue the toddler, she wasn't strong enough to pull Trish out.
Trish was like a second mom. She was a wonderful, wonderful lady. She was the most patient, loving person. It was just a very sad day.
The autopsy revealed a small cut and bruising on Trish's forehead, consistent with a fall. Her death was ruled an accident.
There were injuries to the front and back of Trish's head. Her body was floating near the stairs, near the shallow end of the pool. All of the evidence pointed towards an accidental drowning. But I found it difficult to believe that her injuries were that incapacitating.
I wondered if there wasn't more to it than just an accidental drowning.
The way I always understood it was that Nicole had fallen into the pool somewhere on the side.
Yes.
Trish came down this way and somehow near the stairs hit her head on the rail or on the side of the pool here.
However, Detective Ron Goodwin noticed something peculiar in the aftermath. An unexplained surge in the Angel's Landing community's lavish spending. The residents, who already lived extravagantly, were now spending even more, deepening Goodwin's suspicions about the so-called accident. 3 years later, on March 2, 2006, yet another tragic death shook the community. Trish's husband, Brian Hughes, a safety-conscious diesel mechanic, died in a freak accident.
In 2006, Trish's husband, Brian, was working on a vehicle in his brother's driveway in South Dakota when the jack slipped out from under the vehicle, causing the vehicle to fall on top of Brian, killing him. You know, it's not unheard of that a car falls on somebody and kills them. But when you put it with the other deaths within the family, it raised my suspicions.
While visiting family in South Dakota, he forgot to place cinder blocks beneath the tires of a massive truck he was working on. When the jack failed, the truck collapsed, killing him instantly. Though Brian's death didn't occur at Angel's Landing, its suddenness raised eyebrows, particularly as it marked the fourth death connected to the community. Detective Ron grew increasingly uneasy about the string of accidents. The eerie atmosphere of Angel's Landing, combined with the residents' luxurious lifestyles, flashy cars, grand houses, and extravagant parties, didn't add up.
I was a detective for 20 years, working undercover drug cases. I originally took an interest in this group of people because of their unexplained wealth. They didn't seem to have legitimate employment. We believed that with the unexplained wealth, that could be a drug trafficking crime. Anybody looking from the outside, it appeared to be a group of people that were happy. But it couldn't have been further from the truth.
None of them seemed to have regular jobs or businesses to justify their wealth. Ron's instincts pointed to drugs, prompting him to dig deeper into the enigmatic community. But despite his efforts, he couldn't find concrete evidence to confirm his suspicions. In 2008, another devastating incident rocked Angel's Landing. Jennifer Hudson, a 37-year-old mother of two daughters, Emily and Sarah, died in a bizarre car crash.
The investigation into Jennifer Hudson's accident showed that she pulled out into oncoming traffic on a heavily traveled roadway at a very busy time of the day. And the lane change was reported to be abrupt by the witnesses.
Witnesses reported that Jennifer inexplicably accelerated before her car was crushed like a soda can. Her death added to the growing list of tragedies, leaving her daughters devastated. The frequency of these deaths was alarming. Each time tragedy struck, the community's lavish spending increased, further piquing Detective Ron's curiosity. Determined to uncover the truth, Ron began looking deeper into the connections between the victims and the residents of Angel's Landing. His investigation eventually led him to one name that kept appearing: Lou Castro. The mysterious man seemed to be at the center of the Angel's Landing community, yet no records of his existence could be found in Kansas. Even the homes and vehicles associated with the neighborhood were registered under different names.
It was suspicious not being able to identify Lou Castro from any public database, not finding his name associated with real estate, not finding his name associated with driver's license, voter registrations. It's just not typical of somebody of that age to not have some sort of records. I knew the clock was ticking. I needed to really find out who Lou Castro was. I was worried as each day went by that another death could be on the horizon.
Desperate for answers, Ron tried everything to unmask Lou Castro. He sifted through Lou's trash, followed him to restaurants, and even devised a plan to collect his fingerprints by presenting photos of cars under the guise of investigating thefts. But Lou was always one step ahead, avoiding detection at every turn.
Lo and behold, in front of me is a vehicle with personalized angel tags. I follow this vehicle to a restaurant where I see Lou get out of the vehicle and go inside the restaurant. I went ahead and went inside and sat at a nearby table and watched while they ate dinner. After Lou had left, I contacted the manager and identified myself and told him I'd like to collect those dishes, hoping that I would find his fingerprint. And hopefully this was exactly what I needed to identify Lou Castro. After the restaurant dishes were collected, the lab was unable to pull any kind of decent fingerprint to make any kind of a comparison. These glasses just weren't conducive to leaving a good fingerprint. It was very frustrating to not be able to identify Lou Castro.
Finally, Goodwin caught a break. He found Lou's name mentioned in an obituary, not as a victim, but as the brother of Mona, who had died in the 2001 plane crash. This discovery linked Lou directly to the Angel's Landing tragedy. As detectives pieced together the puzzle, they uncovered shocking truths. All the victims were connected by one chilling detail: life insurance policies. Mona's plane crash resulted in a $750,000 payout. Trish's drowning in 2003 led to a $1.2 million reward. After Brian died in 2006, the insurance money was paid to Trish. And with Jennifer's death, the pattern became unmistakable.
Trisha Hughes had a $1.24 million life insurance policy on her. When she died, that money was given to her husband, Brian Hughes, who died a few years later.
The insurance proceeds from Brian's death were left to members of the family that he was living with at Angel's Landing. So I'm able to start seeing this pattern of accidental death, insurance payout. A couple of years later, another accidental death, insurance payout.
Detectives realized that these tragedies were not accidents, but part of a sinister scheme.
Once I was able to look at bank records, that was key in determining where the money came from. There were no proceeds from regular jobs, regular income from employment. It was sporadic deposits of money
But the biggest deposit of money was the insurance proceeds from the life insurance. You could see the balances going from over $1 million at different times down to maybe a few $1,000s. Approximately every 2.5 years, the next person would die, and the bank accounts would be replenished. The beneficiary was typically the next person to go. So after the benefactor collected the insurance proceeds, then that person, 2.5 years later, would die.
Angel's Landing wasn't just a wealthy neighborhood, it was a cult, and Lou was its leader, orchestrating the horrors to fund his extravagant lifestyle. Detectives were determined to uncover how Angel's Landing came to exist, and their investigation led them to one of Lou Castro's closest allies, a woman who had tragically drowned years earlier. Trish was not just another member of Angel's Landing, she was practically Lou's second-in-command. Trish and Lou's connection dates back to the 1990s in South Texas, where they briefly dated before deciding to remain close friends. Over time, Trish became an integral part of Lou's life and plans. But Trish wasn't the only person Lou grew close to. Another significant figure was Mona, a single mother with 2 young children, Cody and Lindsay. Mona, seeking support, moved in with Lou and Trish, and the 3 adults shared an apartment in Corpus Christi. Mona had plans to join Lou and Trish in Rapid City, but her son Cody, unwilling to leave his father, stayed with her ex-husband. This left Mona and her daughter Lindsay to relocate to Rapid City, settling in a remote mountain home with Lou and Trish. By early 2001, Mona started dating Jim, a 50-year-old real estate agent. Tragedy struck in February 2001 when Mona, Lindsay, and Jim boarded a private plane piloted by Jim for a trip to Nebraska. The plane disappeared mid-flight, leaving everyone puzzled.
I was outside skateboarding in the tennis court with some friends, and I remember my dad calling me inside, and I remember him telling me, hey, your mom and sister, they were in a plane crash. And I just fell to my knees. I went numb. I was in disbelief. I just couldn't believe it.
For weeks, search efforts yielded nothing. Finally, 6 weeks later, the wreckage was found. There were no survivors.
We thought maybe that the plane went down because of bad weather. We got the report back that something had froze on the plane, and that's what had eventually caused the plane to go down. I believe they said something about there was no ice boots on the plane.
Shortly after this devastating incident, Lou made a chilling remark to Mona's son Cody. He told him that Lindsay was never supposed to die, and that, had she survived, Lou would have taken her in as his daughter. Meanwhile, Trisha's life moved forward. She met Brian, a diesel mechanic, and the two got married, eventually welcoming a daughter together. Around this time, another young woman entered Lou's orbit, Kara. Lou met Kara during the summer of 1996 when she was just 15 years old. He was 46 at the time but lied about his age, making her believe he was much younger. Their relationship, which began under false pretenses, turned abusive. Kara, unaware of Lou's true intentions, believed it was consensual, not realizing she was being groomed. Lou's control didn't stop with personal relationships. He instructed Trish to take out over $1 million in life insurance policies, naming her husband Brian as the beneficiary and Kara as a co-beneficiary. This wasn't a one-time event. Lou directed other members of the group to do the same, always ensuring he controlled the beneficiaries and payouts. Crucially, his name never appeared on any official documents, keeping him in the shadows. Then came someone who would later play a crucial role in uncovering the dark secrets of Angel's Landing. In 2001, Jennifer entered Lou's life. Jennifer was a Kansas City realtor, a mother of 2 daughters, 11-year-old Emily and 17-year-old Sarah, and married at the time. She first met Lou in the summer of 2001, as Lou, Trish, Kara, and Brian were searching for a new home for their group. Under Lou's charm and charisma, Jennifer became deeply drawn to him and his vision of a paradise filled with free spirits. He claimed his wealth came from livestock farming and the stock market, but his lifestyle and beliefs were what truly captivated her. Lou didn't just portray himself as an ordinary man, he claimed to be an angel. He told Jennifer that he was centuries old and could foresee people's deaths and even bring them back to life. This struck a chord with Jennifer, a deeply spiritual person who believed in angels. His closest allies, Trish, Kara, and Brian, all supported his claims. Trish even told Jennifer she had witnessed Lou bring himself back to life.
When I was younger, my mom always talked about angels. She always told my sister and I that there's just angels living among us and that they protect you. So it all made sense as to why my mom chose to have us living at Angel's Landing with an actual angel. At first, I didn't believe him. Trish had told us that at one point in time, Lou got real sick and he died and then came back to life. So I assumed that Lou had these powers because Trish actually witnessed it and she's telling me about it. So it must be true.
Under Lou's influence, Jennifer's life began to unravel. She separated from her husband, convinced by Lou's promises of safety and salvation. She even helped Lou secure properties, first in Missouri and then in Kansas, where they purchased a sprawling 10-acre farm that would become Angel's Landing. Jennifer assured her daughters, Sarah and Emily, that Lou, being an angel, would protect them. But little did she know, this decision would lead to the most dangerous chapter of their lives. Angel's Landing was unlike any other neighborhood. The group expanded the property, adding new homes, a swimming pool, and even an ATV course. On the surface, it looked like an idyllic community.
My mom had a house out there. Lou and his significant other had their own house. Trish, Brian, Kara, and Nicole had their own house. It was like each little family had their own house. None of them were blood related, but they were all our family. Trish was like the matriarch. She just loved everybody and took care of everybody. And Brian was her husband. He was just like a big teddy bear. Loved his daughter and his wife very much. It was a fun place to live. We had everything we ever wanted. Sports cars, ATVs, horses, frequent parties. At the time, it was just like, this is how life is.
But for Jennifer, Sarah, and Emily, life would soon take a dark and irreversible turn. Sarah, who was especially close to her father, resented her mother for destroying their family and developed a deep hatred for Lou. On the other hand, Emily, just 10 years old at the time, was more impressionable. She quickly became Lou's favorite, receiving gifts and special attention that isolated her further from her family. Little did Jennifer realize that moving to Angel's Landing wasn't just a mistake. It was the beginning of a nightmare she could never escape. The cult, meanwhile, continued to grow. The exact number of members remained a mystery, as many chose to keep their identities hidden. At its center was Lou, a self-proclaimed 1,000-year-old angel and seer.
Yeah, he told us he was a seer and he could see things. But see, my mom, she believed in that kind of thing.
Wow.
Yeah, because he had us believing that he could see things and foresee the future. And now looking back, yes, it was a cult. But there was no way for me to understand because I was inside.
Lou claimed extraordinary powers, a necromancer who could summon rain and a vessel for 3 angels.
Lou started to push his beliefs on us. He told us that he could foresee the future and that he could, turn into these other personalities. One of his personalities' names was Michael. Then another one was Daniel. And Amber, which would be the angel of death. When he would turn into those alter personalities was when he would start being verbally abusive. If Emily and I were bickering a lot, he would call a family meeting and say that if we didn't start getting our stuff together, then Amber was going to take us to purgatory. And it's for people that get stuck because they've been a bad human.
These claims, paired with his immense wealth, gave Lou an aura of mystique and power. His wealth was undeniable. Lou owned luxury cars like Dodge Vipers and Corvettes, many with customized license plates like Angel 1 through Angel 8. The cult's gatherings were extravagant, filled with drinking and laughter, where Lou charmed everyone, especially the younger women. Sarah, initially wary, began to warm up to Lou. His charisma worked its way into her mind, especially as she saw how happy he made her mother. The admiration and trust the other cult members showed him only sped up her grooming. Jennifer, busy with work, was often away, leaving Sarah and Emily in Trish's company. To an outsider, it all seemed like a close-knit family with an unusual belief system, but appearances can be deceiving. Behind Angel's Landing's cheerful facade lurked a sinister reality. The truth was about to surface thanks to the courage of one cult member who dared to stand up and reveal it all. The police found themselves in a difficult bind. They had some incriminating evidence against Lou, but lacked a formal complaint or solid grounds to arrest him. Feeling the heat, Lou became paranoid. Before the authorities could act, he vanished from Angel's Landing, leaving detectives stunned and frustrated at his escape. And he didn't leave alone. He took the entire cult with him. But this time, one person stayed behind. Sarah, now 24, chose to remain in Wichita, determined to break free and live on her terms. Having spent her teenage years trapped in the cult and scarred by her mother's tragic death, Sarah began rebuilding her life. In 2009, she met Daniel McGrath, a relationship that would become both her anchor and a turning point. Some relationships have the power to change everything, and for Sarah, this was one of them.
The first time I visited Angel's Landing, it did seem like, it would be a nice place to be. Everybody had everything taken care of, and, hardly anybody in the group worked. I eventually met this Lou person. She would call her uncle. He was just really standoffish. There was a lot of females, very few males.
Early in their relationship, Daniel noticed something deeply troubling. Lou's influence still loomed over Sarah. One day, after overhearing an intense phone call, Daniel grabbed the phone and warned Lou to never contact her again. Then, his suspicions growing, he asked Sarah if Lou had ever mistreated her.
It's an awful sort of fear that Lou had over all of us. He was just able to control us and make sure that we felt that horrible fear. I never realized how horrible he was until years had gone by. He would abuse each of us.
What kind of abuse?
Sexual abuse.
What Sarah revealed shattered him. She finally confronted a painful truth she had buried for years. Lou had manipulated and abused her. As she opened up, Sarah shared something even more horrifying. She disclosed that her younger sister Emily had started sharing a bed with Lou just weeks after their arrival at Angel's Landing. This continued for years.
So the first time I met Sarah's younger sister, and that gave me that. And going to that breakfast was, she sat next to him, and he started touching her inappropriately, kind of under the table, caressing her on her inner thigh.
My sister was just a little girl. She was just little. She was just a baby.
Lou's vile actions extended to other girls as well. He manipulated them with twisted claims, insisting that as an ancient angel, he needed to feed on them to survive. Hearing this, Daniel knew he couldn't stay silent. Without telling Sarah, he reached out to the FBI, detailing Lou's pattern of suspicious deaths, questionable money movements, and his current whereabouts.
When I met Sarah, she was terrified of Lou, and I kind of asked her, is this something that you've talked to police about? And, she told me no, she hasn't, and that she would never do that because she was worried about her safety and everybody else's safety, and that's kind of what led me to send an email to the FBI. And I just sent them the information that I had as far as the deaths, the dates that I think they could utilize and kind of go from there. I knew it was the right thing to do. No matter what happens, he had to be stopped.
A sprawling white colonial mansion in Columbia, Tennessee. This was the break the FBI needed. They began monitoring Lou's Tennessee residence and soon discovered a car frequently parked there, registered under the name Joe Venegas. It seemed Lou had adopted a new alias. Investigators then tracked Angel's Landing's financial transactions and found money being transferred from Kansas to Tennessee.
A friend of mine at the FBI faxed me a copy of an email from a person by the name of Daniel McGrath, who was in a relationship with Sarah Hudson. He described an environment of sexual abuse and suspicious deaths at Angel's Landing. The move had required them to transfer bank accounts. I followed the money that had been withdrawn from the banks in Kansas and transferred to a bank in Tennessee. Those bank records in Tennessee revealed a new name that I had not seen before, Joe Venegas. I was able to contact that bank and obtain video footage of the person who represented himself as Joe Venegas opening a bank account.
To dig deeper, agents visited the Tennessee bank handling these transactions. What they found left them stunned. Reviewing the surveillance footage, they spotted two familiar faces, Lou and Emily. There on the tape, Lou, now posing as Joe Venegas, was creating a fraudulent bank account. This act of identity theft provided the authorities with the evidence they needed to finally bring Lou Castro to justice. In April 2010, investigators arrived at Lou's Tennessee home to make the arrest. Lou complied without resistance, but his smug demeanor said it all. He believed he was untouchable, certain he could outsmart the system. The police arrested him, their immediate goal being to obtain his fingerprints. But when they ran the prints through the federal database, nothing came up. After 6 hours of relentless questioning about his true identity, Lou stayed tight-lipped. With no cooperation, he was booked as John Doe and later pled guilty to identity fraud, earning a 2-year prison sentence.
Knew he was going to be in custody for at least 2 years, and we would have time to investigate him and his true identity. I contacted Patricia Hughes' parents in Texas. She gave me a name, Daniel Perez, and said he was a man that Patricia had dated briefly in the late 90s, but he had been in trouble with law enforcement in Texas. Daniel Perez was a pedophile who had assaulted his 11-year-old niece and a 14-year-old girl. The word in Texas was that he had been killed or had died in Mexico. So I asked the law enforcement agencies in Texas to send me a mugshot of this person. Within minutes of the conversation over the phone, I received a fax.
It seemed Lou thought this plea would end the investigation, allowing him to walk away unscathed. He couldn't have been more wrong. For investigators, this was just the beginning. The 2 years Lou spent in prison gave them precious time to dig into his past and build a case that would hold him accountable for his unspeakable crimes. The trail led detectives to Beeville, South Texas, where they began questioning Trish's family. They contacted Trish's sister, who revealed that Trish had once dated a man named Daniel Perez, believed to have died in the mid-1990s. Detectives requested Daniel Perez's records from Beeville authorities, and when Detective Ron examined the mugshot, he was stunned. The man in the photo was none other than Lou Castro, the self-proclaimed angel who had manipulated and destroyed lives. Digging deeper, they uncovered Daniel Perez's real identity. He was born in Arkansas Pass, Texas in 1959 and had once served as a plane mechanic in the Army. His criminal history revealed that in the mid-1990s, Perez had faced sexual abuse charges involving 2 young girls, one being his niece. But before he could be convicted, he staged his death, fled with Trish Hughes, and re-emerged as Lou Castro. The revelations didn't stop there. Sarah, along with her boyfriend Daniel, provided vital information. Sarah shared a horrifying account of how Lou forced her to secretly record a young girl in the bathroom, threatening to kill her father if she refused. Investigators recovered the incriminating video on a laptop seized during the search of Lou's properties. Emily, Lou's last loyal follower, was still under his influence and refused to cooperate until she received an aggressive letter from him during his prison sentence. His harsh words shattered her remaining loyalty. Emily finally opened up to investigators, exposing chilling details about Trish's death. She revealed that about a week before Trish drowned, Lou told them he had a vision of her death. Trish, trusting his supposed divine powers, believed she would be resurrected. On June 26, 2003, Lou set his plan in motion. He instructed Trish and Emily to clean the pool while he and Sarah went out, creating an alibi.
Emily told us that she heard a splash and a scream. Within minutes, Lou Castro came inside the pool house with arms that were wet and out of breath.
The bruise on the head made perfect sense. Somebody held her underwater.
And that he told Emily, wait for a period of time and then call 911 and report that Patricia Hughes had slipped while trying to save her daughter who had fallen in the pool.
Emily heard a splash and a cry while cleaning. Lou later returned with wet arms and told her to stay in the workshop for 20 minutes. When she was finally allowed outside, Lou ordered her to get into the pool with the baby and call 911, claiming Trish had hit her head trying to save her daughter. Emily entered the pool to find Trish's lifeless body. Lou had orchestrated the entire event, using Trish as an unwitting participant in her own murder, while the rest of the cult remained oblivious. Emily's testimony was the breakthrough investigators needed. With her account, the police were able to tie Lou to Trish's death.
When I found out that Lou had actually caused Trish's death, then that gave me even more of a reason to think that he caused my mom's death.
Then, Sarah came forward with more devastating details about her mother's mysterious passing.
Very late one night, Lou had been drinking. Like always, he drank every day. And he said, "It's Jennifer's time to go. She'll be going within the next week or so." And I said, "What do you mean Jennifer's got to go? My mom, she cannot go anywhere. She's like the glue that holds us all together. I don't understand what you're saying." "Well, it's her time to go. She's got to go to the other side." I remember the night before my mom died, I went up to her house and I sat down on the couch and I said, "Mom, Lou says I'm not supposed to talk to you about this, but I can't keep it in any longer. He says that you're the next person to go. I can't live without you, Mom. I don't want you to go anywhere." And she said, "Sarah, don't worry about it. I'm not going anywhere. I'm always going to be here. You're fine. I'm not going anywhere." And that was the last time I ever saw her. They say it could have been a suicide, but I know that she wouldn't just kill herself like this. There's no way. It wasn't till this year that I was actually able to say that my mom committed suicide. It's Lou's fault that she committed suicide.
These revelations led to 28 additional charges against Lou, including child exploitation, sexual assault, and murder. Trish's case was the only one with a living witness, so the authorities focused on it. When Lou finished his sentence for identity fraud, he was immediately rearrested and sent back to prison. Lou Castro wasn't just the leader of a sinister cult. He was a predator who preyed on his followers, amassing wealth by exploiting the life insurance policies of members who died under suspicious circumstances. Finally, his reign of terror had come to an end. During the 2015 trial, Emily, Sarah, and 4 other women who had been minors at the time stepped forward with harrowing accounts of abuse at the hands of Lou. These women, brought in as prosecution witnesses, shared stories that sent chills through the courtroom.
Each of the girls told their own unique story. They also remembered certain events and even said some things that you couldn't repeat on television that they had to do in each other's presence with him. I'm glad these young women found the internal strength to come forward.
Although they didn't know each other, their experiences were eerily similar. Their testimonies revealed a sinister pattern of manipulation and deceit. Prosecutors argued that Lou Castro, whose real name was Daniel Perez, was not only a predator, but also a calculating murderer. He had coerced his victims into taking out hefty life insurance policies and then lived off the payouts when they died under mysterious circumstances.
I found out that there was other deaths and there was other life insurance policies that had been claimed. I knew immediately that my mom and sister's plane crash was no longer an accident. Whether we could ever prove it or not, I knew that. And I know to this day that it was not an accident.
The centerpiece of the trial was the charge of first-degree murder for the 2003 drowning of Trish. In his defense, the 55-year-old Perez took the stand and painted a bizarre picture to refute the allegations. He claimed he hadn't faked his death, but had been brutally beaten by a group of angry men while on his way to court. According to Perez, strangers rescued him, nursed him back to health, and helped him recover from amnesia caused by his injuries. He alleged it was Trish who convinced him his name was Lou. Perez denied ever claiming to have supernatural powers and dismissed the victims' accounts as fabricated. He insisted any sexual encounters were consensual and happened when the women were of age. To further muddy the waters, he claimed a genital injury made it impossible for him to engage with cooperative partners. When confronted about the disturbing footage of a girl in the bathroom found on his laptop, Perez blamed Sarah, claiming it was her recording and denying any involvement. He also denied plotting Trish's murder or even being at the scene when she died. As for the millions amassed by the cult, Perez conveniently claimed ignorance, blaming his supposed amnesia. He even suggested that the women controlled the finances.
Did you in any way plan to murder Patricia Hughes?
No.
But the jury wasn't buying his convoluted tale. His denials fell apart under the weight of overwhelming evidence and testimony. In the end, Perez was found guilty on all charges. He received an 80-year sentence, including 2 consecutive life terms, without the possibility of parole.
It was probably the most amazing feeling that I had had in my law enforcement career. It's a very scary thing to think that somebody like Lou Castro could have control over someone to suggest that they kill themselves. Lou would have stopped at nothing to get what he wanted. Lou Castro murdered one of his best friends to get what he wanted.
Today, he remains behind bars at the Lansing Correctional Facility in Kansas, a far cry from the self-proclaimed angel who once ruled his cult. As we wrap up this video, we want to extend our heartfelt condolences to all the victims affected by this case. The Angel's Landing investigation unveiled the horrifying truth behind Perez's cult. This dark chapter came to light thanks to a determined detective who refused to give up, a courageous boyfriend seeking justice, and a brave survivor who dared to share her story. The tale of Angel's Landing is a haunting reminder of how charm can mask sinister intentions and how the lust for power can lead to unspeakable atrocities. We hope you found this video insightful. Let us know in the comments which case you'd like us to cover next. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to Behind the Crime. Until next time, stay curious and stay safe.